All right, let's talk dinosaurs. We're going to take on some giants today. Literally. We all have that picture of a dinosaur in our heads, right? The one from the movies, the toys we grew up with. But what if I told you that picture is almost completely wrong? Yeah, we're about to bust some of the biggest dinosaur myths that, honestly, most of us still believe. Okay, first, do me a quick favor. Just for a second, close your eyes. I want you to picture a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, really picture it. What's its skin like? What color is it? How's it standing? What sound does it make? You got it? Okay, hold on to that image. All right, open them up. Now, I'm willing to bet you pictured something kind of like this guy on the left. The classic movie monster, right? Scaly, maybe gray or green, standing super tall like some kind of reptilian Godzilla. But look at the guy on the right. That is what science is telling us now. It's more bird than lizard, it's balanced like a seesaw, and wait for it, it might have been fluffy. Yeah, so how in the world do we get from that to this? Let's dig in. So here's what we're going to cover. First, the feather fallacy. Then we'll tackle the whole dino-sized brains thing. After that, we'll get into the Godzilla pose problem. And finally, we'll talk about why all of this really matters. Okay, let's dive right into our first big one, the feather fallacy. I mean, for decades, the image we were all shown was pretty simple. Dinosaurs were just giant, scaly reptiles. And that idea is absolutely everywhere. It's the cold-blooded, scaly beast that's been the star of pop culture forever. But turns out, the fossil record, well, it tells a very, very different story. And the evidence we have now is just wow. It's stunning. Scientists have found these incredible fossils, like one from China called Sinosauropteryx, that don't just show bones, they have clear imprints of feathers. And we're not just talking about the little guys either. There's a ton of evidence now that even relatives of T-Rex, maybe even young T-Rexes themselves, had some kind of feathery coat. Now, they probably weren't using them for flight. Think more like insulation, like a built-in down jacket, or for colorful displays to show off an attractive mate, kind of like a peacock does today. So, suddenly we've got this new picture of dinosaurs. They're like giant, still terrifying birds. But were they smart? Which brings us perfectly to our next big myth, the idea that dinosaurs were all brawn and absolutely no brain. Oh, come on, you've heard this one, right? It's the classic line. Dinosaurs had a brain the size of a walnut. You always hear it about the huge ones like Stegosaurus, and it paints this picture of these, dumb, slow animals just wandering around, purely running on instinct, basically just waiting for an asteroid to show up. But as you might have guessed, the reality is way more complicated. Yeah, okay, it's true some of the big plant eaters had tiny brains for their giant bodies, but others, especially the predators like Troodon or the famous velociraptors, they had surprisingly big brain-to-body size ratios. We're talking about intelligence that might have been on par with modern birds like crows or parrots. The ones that are famous for solving puzzles and even using tools. This hints at stuff like complex social behaviors, maybe even pack hunting, a level of smarts that goes way, way beyond just simple instinct. Okay, so we're building a totally new dinosaur in our minds, right? It's possibly feathery, and it's surprisingly smart. But how did it actually stand and move around? This brings us to our third and final myth, and it's all about how they stood. I like to call it the Godzilla pose problem. This T-Rex, this is the one from all the old movies, the old museum displays, standing almost straight up like a person, with its head way up high, and that huge tail just dragging on the ground behind it. I mean, it looks imposing, for sure. It looks like a monster. But from a physics and anatomy point of view, it's an absolute disaster. It just doesn't work. And this is such a great example of how science works, how it corrects itself over time. So that first pose, that's how paleontologists first put the skeletons together. It seemed to make sense. But then, as we learned more about biomechanics, about how bodies actually move, scientists realized, wait a minute, standing like that would have literally dislocated the T-Rex's hips and probably broken its spine. No way. So that led us to the modern view you see here. The spine was held almost perfectly horizontal, with that giant tail sticking straight out behind it, acting as a critical counterbalance to that massive, heavy head. So instead of a slow, lumbering monster, you get a fast, agile, and honestly, a much more terrifyingly balanced predator. So we've completely overhauled our mental image of a dinosaur. They're feathery, they're smarter, they're way more agile than we ever thought. But you might be thinking, okay, so what? Why does busting these old myths even matter? Well, it's about more than just cool dinosaur facts. It's really about understanding how we learn about the past itself. Think about it. The dinosaur you learned about as a kid in school is probably not the same dinosaur that scientists are studying right now. Every single new fossil we find, every new piece of technology we invent to analyze them, it changes and refines the picture. It's a powerful reminder that science isn't just a book of facts that never changes. It's a process. It's a journey of discovery. And honestly, our changing view of dinosaurs is one of the best examples of that process in action. So, let's wrap up the big takeaways here. 1. Many dinosaurs were way more bird-like than lizard-like. A lot of them probably rocked feathers. 2. They weren't all just dumb brutes. They were a super diverse group with a whole range of intelligence levels. And 3, our picture of them isn't set in stone. It's always being redrawn, getting clearer, and, frankly, way more interesting with every new discovery. And that brings us to the most important point of all. The story of the dinosaur is really the story of science. It's this incredibly humbling reminder that what we think of as a solid, unchangeable fact can be completely upended by new evidence. It forces us to stop and rethink everything we thought we knew. You know, the T-Rex itself never changed, but our ability to see it for what it truly was, that changed everything. And that leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending question to chew on. When you see just how dramatically our image of the dinosaur has changed in just our lifetime, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's unshakable fact that we all believe to be true right now will be the debunked myth of tomorrow?